You're watching the Chucktown Wind Report, Tropics update at 7:30 p.m. on September 23rd, 2015. Okay, so the National Hurricane Center has discontinued, or they have canceled, the area of interest that was off of our coastline. They had it at 10% chance of development yesterday into subtropical in nature, and they have dropped it down to 0% this morning, and now it's not even on the map anymore. So the interest is there for the Goes East satellite from NOAA to keep that as an area of interest, just for zooming in on and keep the satellite active on it. But as far as NOAA National Hurricane Center, they still have their eyes over here on Ida. Now Ida is remaining nearly stationary as she drifts to the east at 4 knots. I do suspect that her path with the mid and upper level steering may drive her down to the east-southeast or even southeast over time, and she could be a lingerer right along the intertropical convergence zone. So we'll have to keep an eye on this one. We may not be done with Ida just yet. Some of the models had her heading north and dissipating by this time as of 3 or 4 days ago, and she has proven them wrong by remaining a weak tropical storm and staying in the vicinity nearly stationary. So something to keep an eye on. Now, over the next 5-day tropical outlook, the National Hurricane Center has circled this area over the Bay of Campeche and the Yucatan Peninsula to head to the north. And the upper shear environment is very hostile for this area as of right now. That could relax a little bit in a couple of days. That's why they're keeping this a very low percent chance of development at 20%. And we'll get to that in just a little bit. But for right now, I definitely want to look at the area that is off of our coastline. What we have is a disorganized trough of low pressure. This is an old frontal boundary, and we've been seeing these northerly winds. Now the Outer Banks of North Carolina are still seeing high northerly winds. I mean, they're getting 25 to 30 knots and even higher in gusts. Some of these areas are seeing low 30s right now, and these northeast winds driving down the coastline are causing some extra spin on these low pressures that develop along this old front. So that's why we've had two different areas of interest develop, 96L and 97L, and they've both dissipated. But now we have this little area right here off of northern Florida that sort of flared up today, and I don't think the National Hurricane Center is going to circle that as an area of interest unless it develops some convection around it, which these areas have been proving time and time again that the upper level shear environment, and you can see the clouds peeling off to the north, the upper level shear environment is just too hostile for these systems to develop convection around the core and stay over the Gulf Stream and develop into anything tropical. So this whole mess, it's disorganized mess of low pressures, is expected to head to the west slowly and into the coastline and press inland as it gets wrapped up around an upper level low. Now, if we look at the rainbow imaging, you can see all this convection, these blobs of convection are just getting pulled to the north, and that is from upper level winds driving the cloud tops away from the centers of circulation. So in order to get a tropical spin and some convection wrapped around, you have to have thunderstorming getting some vertical stacks around the core and wrapping around it, and that's just not happening. So this area is very hostile for any kind of storms to develop. Now if we look at Datascope through weather flow, we can see some of the proof up here where this gradient is still tight between high pressures driving northerlies down and the low pressure off the coast, and you can see some of these buoys are in the low to mid 20s and upper 20s up towards North Carolina Outer Banks, and it sort of tapers off as we get down along the coastline. However, offshore, the offshore pressure gradient remains tighter where these higher winds are residing. So that's along that frontal boundary, and there's probably lots of rain and squall-like activity going on out there underneath those higher cloud tops as they get pulled away to the north. Upper level wind patterns. So here we go. Here's our surface. Go ahead and look at the earth.nullschool.net. I want to look at the surface map. I'm not really sure what's going on with this screen here, but let's refresh it, see if we can get a cleaner screen. Okay, there we go. And I want to put a dot on the surface low that is saying it's still in this vicinity. I do think the surface low for 97L or what was is somewhere over here, but the other surface low pressure is not even being picked up right at the moment by this particular product. So we're seeing more than one spin. I'm actually seeing a spin down here, and then there was another spin up in this area. So just for namesakes, just for keeping an area of focus, we'll stick with the 97L area and we'll start going up in the atmosphere. Let's look at 500 millibars. This is about 18,000 feet up, and you'll start to see some of these winds, these upper level winds coming up from the southwest, and you can see how those cloud tops are getting driven to the northeast. Here's a mid-level low pressure that is starting to develop right over Georgia as it moves down towards the Gulf Coast, And if we go higher up in the atmosphere, I'm sure that we'll see a long wave trough. It's similar to a short wave, however, it extends all the way from Canada down into the Gulf, and it's reaching down to the Gulf of Mexico. You can see these upper level winds diving down to the Gulf over that area of interest that they've circled over the Bay of Campeche, and that is why there's such a low percentage of development, because of these northerly winds wrapping around this giant ridge of high pressure. There is some upper level winds along the east coast as well on some of this jet streaking as it heads up to the northeast, and that is going to keep those cloud tops moving away from these centers of circulation along the Gulf Stream. So that is what is keeping tropical development down off of our coastline. Okay, let's go back to the surface and take a look at Ida. And if we scoot over to where Ida is out to the east, we can see this map is being a little bit slow on the refresh. Okay, here's the surface low for Ida. Now, one thing in particular we want to look at when we actually have a tropical storm is circulation, healthy circulation. So we see a healthy surface circulation here. However, when we start going up in the atmosphere, let's go to 500 HPA, so 18,000 feet again. And you see the center is not where it used to be. It's over here to the northeast. And when we go even higher up, we see that center. I'm going to put the mouse where it was. The center is actually just almost in that same vicinity. But what happens with that is you have a displaced low pressure. So you have surface low in one area. When you have mid-level and upper-level lows displaced away from that center, then that exhaust system and outflow from the storm is unhealthy. It does not allow it to build very rapidly because there's no exhaust system for it to breathe. So with low pressure at the surface, you have air coming in at the surface and then going up and out. If you don't have a clean funnel of wind going up and out away from a system, then that makes it very difficult for it to become organized. Now at the upper levels, I want to take a look at that one more time. You see this very large upper level low. This is more like an upper level vortex to the west of Ida. And then we have this jet streak coming down and around as this air is sinking down from the north. Now this is providing upper level shear, which is pushing those cloud tops down to the southeast of Ida. And that's what we saw earlier on the visibility map, is that her cloud tops and all of the convection is staying on the southeastern side of this storm. So these upper level steering currents should be able to pull her down here to the southeast, and as she continues to the east and southeast, this may become a more favorable environment. If she heads anywhere to the north for any reason whatsoever, this upper level shear right here will catch her. If she goes to the southwest, this upper level shear will catch her here, and then over to the west even further, she has a very, very difficult time ahead. So the further she can hang around out here in this area, the better off she's going to be. But for right now, we'll have to kind of keep her as a tropical storm for the next several days. So looking at the numerical models, I want to look at the GFS model in particular. And here's our area off the coast. And as the day goes on through the next 6 to 12 hours, we see this area of low pressure. I think they're sort of centralizing it over that area off of northern Florida. And then that whole mess of elongated trough of low pressure moves into the coastline as we get into 36 and 48 hours. So that's pretty much it for the tropics. And once again, for the 2-day outlook, we're only looking at Ida, nothing along our coast. And with 5 days, we're looking at the Gulf. So eyes on the Gulf right now for the next 5 days. And that will do it for the Chucktown Wind Report Tropics. Thanks for watching.